I enjoy Danganronpa. I had a blast of a time playing through all three of the main games. So in this video I will rank every case. We'll go through each chapter one by one and review them. Each score will be weighted in comparison to the others. So the worst chapter will be a 0, the best one at a 10, and 5 is average. This video will assume that you've played the 3 games for yourself, so I'll just talk about what I liked and what I disliked, spending about 1 minute on each chapter. Anyway, let's go. So, the first chapter of the series is pretty interesting. When I first got the game, I was immensely bored. Like, this thing starts off just so damn slow. But once the actual chapter gets going, it's pretty good. I'm gonna make an entire video about Sayaka one day, because I don't think people really understand her motivations as a character, and I think she gets a bit too disrespected in comparison to some of the other killers in the series. Yes, she is a victim, but she also tried to kill someone. Anyway, I think that Sayaka being the first victim is a really good subversion of expectations. I came from Ace Attorney, where having a sidekick, specifically a bubbly, bright girl like Sayaka, was the norm. I was pretty surprised when Makoto found her in the bathroom. In terms of the mystery, it's not really anything special. They literally spell out the killer's name to you at the start. Though, funnily enough, when I first played this, I didn't even notice it until I got to that point in the trial. I've seen some people saying on my channel that the mysteries in Danganronpa were pretty easy to solve, and I figured out why I disagree. It's because I'm a dumbass. So, to close, I thought this was a fantastic intro, 7 out of 10. Well shit, this is a polarizing chapter. And it's due to one reason: Chihiro Fujisaki. I've seen people calling this part of the game like transphobic, and I'll make a video about it one day probably, but I kind of disagree. Let's keep that controversial topic out of this video though, and be nice to each other. The other well-known thing from this chapter is the introduction of Toko as Genocide Jack. I love this. Toko was kind of annoying before this, but afterwards, she becomes one of the most iconic characters in the series. Genocide Jill is funny and super entertaining anytime she's on screen. This chapter also shows you more about how Byakuya is an asshole, and I love it. And him. I love him. Marry me, please. As a killer, I always thought that Mondo's motivations were iffy. Like, they're there, but it takes the player believing that someone can have such a massive character flaw to the point that someone admitting their own flaws would make him so jealous that he has to murder them. For me, this chapter is another 7 out of 10. This chapter is meh. Everybody knows this chapter is meh. This is the first misstep for the series in my opinion. I understand why there's a double murder trend in the series. You need to kill off some of the useless characters, but come on. Taka could have made it through. He had a chance for some development and they just wasted it. Hifumi's whatever, fuck that guy, stupid simp. And honestly, I found Celeste to be a super obvious culprit. The first of many in this series. Well, I guess you'd have to include Leon as well, but I'm stupid, never mind. The stupid Robo-Justice bullshit was annoying and wasted so much time. Literally, no one believed that Hiro was the culprit. He's too stupid to do something like that, and it was obvious that the stupid fucking Robo-Justice bullshit was right up Hifumi's alley, and yet nobody did anything about it. Also, fuck Hifumi for saying that it was Yasuhiro as his dying words, and not the name that we all know Celeste by. 2 out of 10, I just can't talk about this stupid case anymore. Thankfully, it picks itself back up with one of the better cases in the series, the suicide case. Byakuya is at his best here. His voice actor goes crazy. The man straight up drinks what everyone else thinks is poison. Hina is good here too, despite being a major nuisance. They make a big deal out of the whole locked room mystery thing in this chapter, but I knew it was a suicide from the start pretty much. By this point, I pretty much knew that Byakuya and Kyoko were going to make it through, and the chapter didn't really build up any motives outside of Byakuya being a dick. Especially since they prove everyone's innocent so quickly. And considering that Hina and Sakura were besties, did anyone think that Hina would actually kill her? Though, the part where Byakuya starts having a mental breakdown because he was wrong kills me every time. Kyoko's so smug, and even though she doesn't show that much emotion, her voice actress did a good job showing that Kyoko is having a grand old time sticking it to Byakuya. So to wrap, Hina's sort of the villain of this case, and she's okay. Motivations are fine, but it's just so damn obvious that she didn't do it, that it just missed a bit for me. Dick move by Monokuma though, switching the note. 6 out of 10, slightly above average. Weird case. That's all I can say. Narratively, I get it, but in terms of an actual case, I can't rank it that highly. I didn't time it or anything, but I'm pretty sure that this is the shortest case in the entire series. At least it starts off with a meme.
Mukuro Ikusaba.
I can never hate on a Danganronpa meme. In my opinion, Danganronpa games lack both pacing and subtlety a lot of the time, and it's pretty bad here. The first 3 or so chapters of this game are like, alright, let's make some decent mysteries and whatever, while the last 2 are essentially like, oh shit, we forgot plot. They jam so many plot dumps in this chapter that the whole thing is basically a plot dump. Anyway, the victim here is unknown, but again, are they really? The aforementioned meme makes it pretty obvious who the victim was in hindsight, and the trial's bad. Like, trust me, I understand why some of the stuff is in this chapter from a narrative standpoint, but the fact that they force you to prove that Kyoko isn't a literal ghost annoys me to no end. Could they have made it less obvious that they were padding for time? Without it, the trial will be short as hell. The ending, the good one at least, is alright. You essentially make the choice to sacrifice yourself so that the others have a chance to live. It's in character for both Makoto and Kyoko, so I don't dislike it how some other YouTube channels do. And the Deus Ex Machina alter ego makes sense when you consider Makoto's talent. And that in future installments, luck is a tangible talent. 4 out of 10, below average, not that great, but not disturbingly terrible. I'm sorry, alright? I'm so sorry. I might get hate for this, but I really don't like Junko Onishima. I don't. I wasn't impressed with her when I first played this game, and I'm still not now. She's popular, but I've never really been into the pure evil with no nuanced villain types, even in a better written series like Ace Attorney. I might just be an idiot, but she just doesn't have any motivation. Not a good one, at least. Even if I am missing something, she definitely doesn't have one in this game, so it's fair for me to criticize. If you like her, that's cool, I don't. Moving on, I alluded to this earlier, but if there's one thing that doesn't ever improve about this series, it's the final chapters. All 3 of them are entirely plot dumps, and I rank none of them very highly. This isn't the worst game at this. Spoiler alert, I think the 3rd one is by far the biggest plot dump, but it's pretty bad here too. I can't even talk about everything here. So what did I like? Makoto saying, "Shit!" and the ambiguity at the end. What did I not like? Junko, length, massive amounts of exposition. 3 out of 10. I love Danganronpa 2. I think it's aged a lot better than the first game has, and Hajime has my favorite English voice actor of all the protagonists in the series. Yes, it's probably because he was a Power Ranger, but I mean, he's also got some banger-ass lines in the trials. This is the end! So, this game opens in what I think is a brilliant way. If you've played the first game before playing this one, you'll understand it. Even though Usami is actually good, the player has absolutely no trust for her. You're on edge the entire time before shit hits the fan. Now, I'm not a fan of them killing off Fat Byakuya first. They do this in V3 as well. Why kill off the most mysterious character immediately? Damn you, Spike Chunsoft. The Nagito twist was good as well, and I'm glad they got rid of Terutero immediately, because I'm not a fan of sexual predators. And yes, I'm one of the many who couldn't get meat on the bone first try. It's a big meme, but it's true. It took me like 2 minutes to actually complete that PTA. Anyway, this is a really good and compelling intro case. 7 out of 10, again. I don't like this chapter. Yes, it's partially because they kill off my waifu. Like, damn, I live for Hinazumi, or I guess whatever amalgamation you can make of T-Bone and Koizumi, because I ship us. But no, this case is actually pretty weak. I've never been a big fan of the super targeted motives, and this is one of them with the whole retro video game thing. It was just a giant target for Fuyuhiko. Also, am I the only one who found all the video game character names to be a bit confusing? I got stuck a few times trying to decipher which damn girl I was talking about. And I'm also just not a fan of how they have to force in a reference to the first game's second chapter, where they reveal that one of the characters is actually a serial killer. They try to do the same thing here, and it just doesn't work. There are a lot of good connections to the first game in this game, and this just isn't one of them. It wastes time, and it's dumb. However, I want to take a moment to shout out the voice cast for this game. I already did it for Hajime earlier, and I want to do it for Fuyuhiko in this chapter. All in all, I'm not a really big fan of this chapter, and I don't think that's very unpopular. 2 out of 10. You know what else I'm not a fan of? This entire fucking chapter. It's bad. I'm one of the few people that actually like Mikon, but I also love Ibuki, and they really fucked up the potential with Hiyoko in this chapter. And Mikon just kinda sucks here. Right, so this chapter makes literally no sense, and it's a really crappy motive. Despair disease? Seriously? Could the writing staff have been any more lazy? Like, I get why it turns Mikon into a killer, she remembers that she's in ultimate despair, but really? That's all you've got? Not to mention the massive fucking plot holes this entire case has. Mikon has superhuman speed in this case. When you look at what she needed to do to pull her crime off, it's just bad. Also, look, I understand why they once again wanted a double murder so we could parallel the first game again, but seriously? I get why you killed off Ibuki, but you didn't have to kill Hiyoko. You're allowed to develop more than one character. No one would be mad if both Fuyuhiko and Hiyoko got some development. To sum it all up, this case is lazy, stupid, and bad, and it makes me want to punch the tempered glass side panel on my computer right now, just thinking about it. 0 out of 10, can't get any worse than this. Thankfully, it didn't get worse. It got better. A lot better. They didn't feel the need to shoehorn in a reference to the first game in this chapter, and frankly, it's a lot better for it. This is a mystery that is fun to solve, and really crazy in a good way. I really liked basically the entire section where you try to figure out what exactly the funhouse is and how it works, Octagon memes aside. The killer and culprit also make perfect sense in this chapter. There's no way they were going to let Gundam and Nekomaru survive until the end, so killing them off in a memorable as hell mystery does both of them justice, especially Gundam. I also like how much Nagito hates you after he finds out the truth. Also, Gundam had by far the best motive, wanting to, help everyone else live. Gundam's got one of the best murder methods in the entire series in my opinion, especially with what he tries to do to get away with it. This chapter is just a straight 8 out of 10. I feel like this one is almost universally considered to be the best chapter in the game. Do I agree? Yeah, of course I do. So, what makes this chapter so good? Emotions, I guess. Now, look, I'm not a Chiaki simp like the rest of the fandom or anything, but I did like her quite a bit. I even like Nagito for what he was, and this chapter uses both of them almost perfectly. Firstly, the mystery is really good from the start. Not to mention how brutal that body discovery is. It's probably the only time I've really cringed from one. I also enjoy how they leverage Nagito's talent here. Makoto's luck was always kind of fake, right? Like, it was always there for sure, but Nagito is a lot more lucky, almost to an insane degree. So, I like how they use their own in-universe rules to explain how he got the traitor to throw the fire grenade with the poison. But I think the thing that puts this over the top is just how everyone reacts to Chiaki being the killer. Sonya is especially good here, as is Hajime. I also love how he doesn't say any of his catchphrases or anything. It's small, but a great touch. I also love the victim choice here. Now, I like Nagito and all, but just like with Gundam, I couldn't see him being there for the final trial with just how insane he is. He's a bit too crazy for that. To close, this chapter is nearly perfect, which, for this ranking, grants it the first 10 out of 10. Will there be another? Again, not a fan of the finale cases very much in Danganronpa. I think this one is the best, to be fair. Spoilers for the score, I guess. But again, all the same issues apply to what they did in the first game. I do like Junko more here, probably due to already being familiar with her. I still don't think she's a great villain or anything, but she's more than adequate. But again, the entire chapter is literally just a giant plot dump with tons and tons of info. But this chapter does use the nostalgia factor quite well. I had about 7 months between playing Trigger Happy Havoc and Danganronpa 2, so it wasn't exactly like nostalgia for me, but it was good getting to see the golden trio from the first game again. I think the ending falls a bit flat in all honesty. Like, you literally go Super Saiyan and scream future at everything. It's kind of funny when you think about it. But again, I like this mostly because it plays into the fact that you've probably played the first game and it isn't afraid to leverage that. 5 out of 10, it's still a giant plot dump, but I can tolerate it. Alright, so this is the game where they decided they'd make all of the trials ridiculously long. In terms of my sanity, it's worse, but from a quality perspective, I don't think it changes all that much. Except for in the finale case. Spoilers. Anyway, everybody knows that this case is good. Everybody knows why this case is good. Time to explain it anyway. It's the plot twist. Now, each other first chapter in this series has a plot twist. Danganronpa 1 had Sayaka being the killer, and Danganronpa 2 has Nagito being a crazy-ass mofo, and of course, in Danganronpa V3, you are the murderer. There isn't really anything about this chapter that is special other than that. It's just that having the fake-out protagonist is such a good plot twist that it carries this chapter into being easily the best intro in the series. I genuinely feel like if you were playing as Shuichi from the start, this chapter would have been a 5 or even a 6 out of 10, just too typical. But the protag fake-out easily brings it up to a 9 out of 10. Good job. Alright, so this chapter is pretty forgettable in my opinion. Only the execution is really memorable, to be completely honest, but that doesn't mean it's bad. It's not good enough to be remembered a ton, but it's not bad enough to be infamous or anything. This case just kind of exists. I felt that the mystery and the actual murder plot was fine, but it's a bit too early for me to start caring about these characters in any meaningful way. I feel that way about all the second chapters really. The first game is just lucky to have that fantastic plot twist. I do like the actual motive and whatnot. I like that Ryoma wanted to die. I'd want to die too if I looked like that. Also, shout out to Kirumi for being that committed to running the country. We need more of that in real life. And also shout out to the body discovery, which is probably my favorite in the entire series, maybe tied with the Nagito one. But again, outside of the body discovery and execution, this chapter doesn't do much for me personally. 5 out of 10, not great, not awful, could be better, could be worse. This chapter is so disappointing. I have an old video on it, but I'll reiterate here. Of course, for some reason, the writers felt like they needed to maintain the formula yet again, but the way they did it this time gave them the chance to do something really compelling. So basically, it's yet another double murder that falls into all the same pitfalls as the last two. This time with less plot holes though this case does still require quite a bit of a suspension of disbelief. So, they spend so much time on Tenko's death that you kind of forget about Angie. Now look, I don't like Angie or anything. I was actually glad she died in this chapter. I even had the same reaction as Cub Scouts. But man, give her some respect. However, the biggest flaw in this case is the fact that they set it up like there could have been 2 killers, which would have been interesting as only the first murder would count in the trial. Then of course, they go nowhere with it, and just have Kyo be the killer. And that sucks, because I really wanted to see what it would have been like if one of the other characters committed the murder, and they would have had to live with everybody else. It would have been very interesting to explore that. But sadly, this case is a 1 out of 10, cannot be worse than the last chapter 3, but this case is still annoying as hell, and I hate it. Thankfully, this case kinda saves the game for me. I actually think that it's the best of the 2 let's get weird chapter 4s, but instead of a funhouse, you're in a virtual world. This chapter really uses the rules that it created for the virtual world, and the character motivations that its characters have to its advantage in a pretty clear way. I actually like Miyu, so I was sad to see her go, but again, there's no way they were going to let her or Gon to survive all the way to the end, so I saw it coming. This chapter has some of, if not the best voice work in the entire series. Kaito and Kokichi specifically go off, and I just love it. But anyway, This might just be my personal favorite murder method in the entire series. It's up there for sure. The manipulation from Kokichi onto Gonta is entirely on brand here, and I just love how they use the virtual world's rules to carry out the murder. It rewards the player for paying attention to the rules, and it helps the case be grounded in its own reality. And also, toilet paper is a hilarious murder weapon. It also characterizes Kokichi just fine, I think. I don't know, I've always found his character to be kind of confusing and contradictory, which I'm pretty sure is the point. This case is definitely a 9 out of 10. So, unpopular opinion, but I think, at worst, this case is equal to Chapter 5 from Danganronpa 2. Yeah, I bet you thought I was going to say it sucks. I'd even say that it may just be a bit better than that case. Now look, Game 2, Case 5 earned its 10 out of 10, and so does this. So yes, this case is a 10 out of 10 as well. But let me share why. Now, it was kind of obvious that Kaito was the one who survived and Kokichi was the actual victim, but I don't know. For me, I had just like a 1% doubt in my mind knowing how Danganronpa can be, with expectations at times. And this tiny doubt was more than enough to make this trial appear even better to me. This is another trial that uses the rules to the game's universe to its advantage, with the whole giant-ass robots thing. Yes, I know they're called exosols, but I like to call them giant-ass robots. This chapter also uses the Big Four, which for reference is Maki, Shuichi, Kokichi, and Kaito, relationships with each other, which is only something that can improve a chapter, as the 4 main players of the game, who have gotten the most plot, are all invested in this chapter. That means that we, the player, will also be heavily invested in it. That's why I love this case. It feels like a Game 2 Case 5 plus to me, if you know what I mean. 2-5 had the 3 main players, and this case had 4 involved. I just love this chapter, and it's probably my favorite to be completely honest. So this is the most infamous chapter in the game, and I actually agree completely. This chapter sucks, and I don't even think that it's due to the typical reason that everybody thinks it sucks. I'll get to that later. Honestly, all the finale cases have a major difficulty spike, which hurts them of course, but man, here I feel like it's turned up to a 10. Especially once the plot twist is revealed. I literally kept failing this one mass panic debate where you're playing as Kibo over and over, and it's not like I have shitty reaction time. I mean, I have well over 2,000 hours of CSGO under my belt. I'm sure I've learned a thing or two even though I still suck at it. Then of course, this chapter once again has one giant ass plot dump, made even worse from the fact that it takes for fucking ever. Genuinely, the class trial alone took me like 4 hours. I'm fine with the trials getting longer, but that's kind of insane. Alright, so everyone hates the ending because of the whole "it's all fiction" twist, but honestly, I don't even care. There's a lot of coping in the fanbase that Tsumugi was lying, as the game sort of has a theme of lies, so I get it, but I don't know. This will probably age terribly, but I think she was telling the truth. I don't even hate it. I only hate Hajime's new voice. I don't think this chapter is horrible compared to the other Atro cases, but man, do I dislike it for the difficulty spike and the massive time sink. 3 out of 10. Wow, this video was a lot of time and effort. Danganronpa is an interesting series to rank, because there's nothing really quite like it. Please share your favorite and least favorite case in the comments if you've made it to the end of this, and please like the video if you've made it this far. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll be seeing you next week as we're back with Ace Attorney.